Hello and welcome to Got Clutter, Get Organized, the conversation. I am excited because I have a returning guest as well as a fellow professional organizer and author, Nicole Gabai. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Janet. Thanks for having me back.
So today we're going to talk about organizing, but also organizing from the aspect of the creative person. But before
Mhm.
we get into that, I want to talk about your book, which is The Art of Organizing, an Artful Guide to an Organized Life. What made you decide to write that book? Yes, there it is. It's nice and
There it
colorful. So you can't
is,
miss
very
it, when you're either
colorful.
on Amazon or either in the bookstore. But what made you
Oh,
decide
good.
to write that?
Thank you. Well, I've been a professional organizer for 23 years and I worked mostly one on one clients. I mean, usually it was always one on one. And I felt like I was using the same method over and over with each client. And then I would teach classes. I've taught workshops at colleges. I've taught them at adult night school. And I was always repeating the same process. And I realized not only has it helped me so much because that's a process I've relied on all these years, but I felt like I wanted to reach more people and that more people should have access to learn the process because it is a skill, I believe, that anyone can learn. So, with the proper guidance, I felt like if I could explain it in a simple enough manner, that it would be easy to grasp. And I'm a creative too. I'm an artist. I'm a textile designer by training, and I really every time I worked with my clients, I would draw them pictures, and I would say, "Oh, you need a shoe shelf over here." They'd say, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And I would draw a picture, and they'd say, "Oh, yes, of course, I know what that is." Or I would say, "This is a good place for a magazine box." Well, what is that? So I found that obviously, as an artist, I loved to illustrate what I was trying to say. And after a while, it just felt like the next natural step was to put it all in a
Mm.
book.
So, Nicole, what is the misconception between the organizing but also the creativity? Because sometimes people feel, well, I'm a creative, so therefore, I'm not going to be organized, but I know it's a misconception. And you talk about it in your book. Can you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, for sure. So, as an artist myself, I've gone through that evolution. At first, when I was in college, I felt like I need to have my creative juices flowing. So, I need to see everything, and everything needs to be in front of me for inspiration. And after a while, I realized that wasn't really working for me. I was living in an apartment in New York, but I had to get to my classes at my college, and there had to be a way for me to gather my things and make it portable. So little by little, it was an organic process for me for sure was okay, I need to have sections for everything. And that's what I do now in my studio. I just think many artists either don't have that skill, because I really think it's a skill we can learn, don't you think?
Yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I feel that I had the opportunities to work in the corporate world, even though it was difficult as a creative person because they rely on systems. And, everything in corporate America is um, systematized, but also repetitive. And
Mhm.
as an artist, we always try to think outside the box and we want new ideas and we want to try it from this angle. Maybe it'll be better if we do it this way. And I sort of just took it all in when I worked at this company. And I worked at MTV and Nickelodeon, which we would think, oh, such creative companies. It must have been like art everywhere all day long. And it wasn't. Their internal structure was very systematized. Um, and then I started to see, well, I worked in the um, props department and the set design department at Nickelodeon, and I also saw how organized it was. So I was learning systems without even knowing it, but I was using the systems. I also created the prop closet for
Mhm.
Nickelodeon. So it was a big giant warehouse and everything had to be put in order because you couldn't have just aisles and aisles of props everywhere. If we needed pots and pans, we need to find those. If we needed hats, we need to know where that is. And if you need, funny wigs, you need to know where those are. So I was learning those systems and I I feel like that's what my book is imparting. It's that knowledge that I gained from my years in corporate world, and then I weave in my artist flair because the book is illustrated, as you know, and it's full color. Um, so that's really the inspiration behind it, but also to really help artists, give them access to this is how systems can work for you, because so many creatives wouldn't take a job in a corporate world.
And just listening to you, I can see how the organization can actually almost expand your creativity, because when you are in a creative space, there's certain colors, textiles, certain things, and if you can actually put your hand on it, it allows that creativity to continue to flow. As when you have things a little disorganized or clutter, then you've
Yeah,
got to waste your time and energy, and you're just
yeah,
looking for I know I bought it. I think I bought it last week. And then, of course, maybe 2 and 3 months later, you actually find, I knew I had it. So, yes, creating systems, because as you were talking, I'm thinking, yeah, you can have all your red beads over here and maybe all your specific color fabrics over there. So, I can understand it. So, Nicole, for people who are maybe creative, maybe because it's their business, but also the people at home, because I know a lot of people who every season they just go all out and they decorate their homes. How can you provide like maybe a strategy or two for those people just so they can continue, whether it's at home or even with their business, to be creative?
yes, absolutely. And what you were saying earlier in this portion of your question, because I kind of feel like there was a couple of parts to it, and that is, as a creative person, you need to be able to put your hands on that thing. So again, I always go back to my principles, which is first sections, breaking everything down into sections, and then breaking it down into zones in each section. So um, and that applies to an artist organizing his or her studio. And then it applies, like you said, people who are at home and they want to go all out and decorate. First it's Thanksgiving, and then it's winter wonderland, and then it's let's get into spring with daffodils. And now we're in later spring with, more colors and moving to summer. So I get that. The most important thing is from the get go is breaking it down into sections. So as an artist in a studio, for example, I use many mediums. I do acrylic painting, in which case I'm doing mixed media, which requires or which I use all different textures, colors, images, all different kinds of texture making tools, etc. So that's my acrylics. I also do oil painting. So that's a whole nother language of art supplies. So now I have my acrylic painting with mixed media, um, access to all the products I store in a box, and I have that section. Then I have my oil painting section. So that requires different brushes. It requires the brush cleaner, of course, all the paints, and then you have newer paints, and then you add paint because you're always looking for the right color, and all the supplies with that. And then I also make jewelry, so I have a whole section for jewelry making. So that and with home decor, same thing, keeping everything in its proper boxes. So whether you store things in a closet, in your basement, your attic, it does need to be stored properly because, as you know, we store for retrieval. We're not just throwing things in boxes and hoping for the best.
Hmm. Hmm.
When we want to stay organized, you have each category in a box. So let's say you have a Thanksgiving box, preferably a clear plastic, or that sort of frosted kind of plastic we have out there, and put your products, all your decor, everything that goes with that, but have a big label on it. This is Thanksgiving. And then maybe you have another box, and that's your winter decor box. And then that's separate and slightly different. And on and on. So then it's your spring box, and then it's your summer box. And that has to be clearly labeled. So right there in that kind of decor, you're creating your sections, and really it's all going to be zone one because those are all the decor you're going to pull out because maybe you added a few things, but that's all going to get used for the most part. Each year you might go through it and say, you know what, I really
Mhm,
didn't like that poster
mhm,
or that banner or
mhm,
whatever, and donate it. And
mm,
same with artist spaces. Once we decide what our sections are, depending what kind of artwork we're doing, and we have many facets of our artwork. Some people will do large format, some is smaller format, some is photography, whatever it is. And then once you have your sections, you break it down into zones. And I'll explain that because so much feedback I get is, wow, that zones principle really changed, was a game changer for me. So I'll explain it. And what that means is very simple. You have your section. Let's say it's going to be my mixed media. My zone one items is things I need the closest to me when I start that project. So it's my acrylic brushes, it's my cups for water, and my wax paper for paint, and the canvases I'm working on, etc. So the most important things I need to get started are my zone one. Zone two might be extra supplies. Maybe I'm going to do a special effect, or I'm going to add gesso, or I'm going to add some uh, polymers. So that's zone two, because that's like, I'm not always using that material.
mhm, mhm,
And and then zone three is, okay, I have boxes of fabrics and I have boxes of all kinds of textures that I like, etc. So that's my zone three. So it's in my cabinet, it's on a higher shelf because I don't access it right away. It's just a little less uh, level of priority, if you will. And then in my case, I have a zone four, which is reference books. I love my art reference books, but I don't need those right next to me all the time. So I have that a little further away. It's in a bookcase. I know I can walk over there and pull out what I'm looking for, but I don't need all those items on my desk at all times. So that's the zones principle. It's,
mhm.
taking everything you're going to work with and prioritizing it, because we don't need everything in our space at all times. And that's the key.
And you know what? Just listening to the different zones, it also allows you to be creative without having anything that you don't need, because you just have the things that you actually need and you're working with, and you don't have maybe some extra supplies, etc., taking up that valuable creative space. But also what you were saying about how to designate containers, whether they're clear or, a little bit frosted. And as you were saying, and one of the things I think people start like that, Nicole, and you probably
Mhm.
know this, but what
Yes.
happens is they're taking things down. There's a little space in this one, even though it might be, spring, and they're right now they're in Thanksgiving, and they just kind of shove it in there. So I think
Oh,
also with all of that, it's just a little discipline as well. But that's what you talk about with your zones. I like that, the zone principle. So everybody's a zone principle, but you have to probably get the book to really dig deep. So, Nicole, how do you stay organized? Like, because you are a creative. I mean, you
yeah.
said you do jewelry, you do paintings, but you also work with clients. You're an author. You've got family obligations. So, how do you
Yeah.
manage it all?
Um, the sections that I talked about is, in
Hmm.
some ways, it is the tangible version of compartmentalizing. So,
Okay.
as in your varied parts of your career, we compartmentalize. So that's where the sections part came in, and that's how I use it. So I stay organized by having not only each section of my life, like you said, the book, I'm also an illustrator. I illustrated the whole book. So I keep each of these kind of specialties, if you will, in their own section. So if I'm ready to do illustration, I pull out the things I need just for that. If I'm ready to do marketing for my book, then I have a marketing section and all the notes and people and potential opportunities and things like that. So I'll draw on that. Now, the key thing is not just keeping things then in sections, because then I broke it down into my zones, but then there's something I call back to one. And back to one is also another principle in my book that I talk about. And that's from my TV production days. This is a concept I learned where as the art department comes in and creates the set, there's so many decisions involved and many people who make these decisions. So there's the lighting department, the sound department, the art department. Then you have the director, the producer. Everyone is weighing in on how that scene, that set should look. And it's very intentional. Okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to put this wine glass here. No, it's in the way of the camera. Can't see the actor's face. Nope, we're going to move it there. So everything gets set. And they call that back to one. So once everyone gets into the scene, the actors are doing their thing, cameras are moving, all kinds of things are moving and happening at the same time. When that happens, there's always a reason that the director will yell, cut. Okay, now maybe there was a sound outside, airplane went by. Maybe they want to see the actor do it differently. There's a million reasons. So now everything on that set has been moved around. The actors were in, now they're out. Everything has changed. Camera moved somewhere else. Okay, now they say back to one, everybody. So all the people, the players who knew how to set that scene, go back in. They take pictures of it. They know what back to one will look like. And there is a reference point. And that same concept is what I use in my work and in my daily life. I mean, for everything. I've determined from the beginning, after my sections, put it in zones, then I break it down as to what is my back to one. And I always recommend to people spend 15 minutes every night before you go to bed. Get back to one. Before you leave the office, get back to one. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't, and things continue to be out of place by the weekend, it's going to be hard to find anything. And then you have to spend a few hours on a Saturday, which is fine. But you create, like you said, it's a discipline. You want to create that process for yourself to get back to one.
I
That's how
like
I
that,
stay
Nicole.
organized.
I like
That is
that. I'm going
it.
to take that from you back to one because I really
Yeah,
work hard to discipline myself to actually put things back where they belong. So,
that's right.
so yeah, back to one. I like that, Nicole. So,
Oh,
Nicole,
good.
how can people connect with you but also get a copy of your book?
Yes. So you can connect with me on Instagram, which would be fabulous. It's at Nicole Gabai, NicoleGabai. And they can go to my website, which is the letter B like boy hyphen organized, ORGANIZED.net. Send me emails, call me, any which way works for me. And my newest certification, I'm not sure if I had completed this the last time we spoke. I am
Okay.
now certified as a virtual organizing professional. Did you know that? Did I tell you before?
Congrats. Well, not before, but because I follow you on Instagram, I knew about
Oh,
it. So
thank you. So you
congratulations.
did. Thank you. And that is, I'm really excited about that because we have found in so many ways, I mean, even scientifically proven about creating new synapses in our brains. And that skill transfer is what we have found happens in virtual organizing. So I'm over
Mhm,
here being the I don't even want to say coach because I'm really being the instructor and I'm helping the
mhm,
client move through their steps, but and their physicality is teaching them new ways of doing things. So not only is it
mm,
effective to organize the space, but we've learned scientifically that our brains are creating new ways of doing things. And
mm.
so I'm excited about it. So my clients can be anywhere in the world. And, this whole process of Zoom has been just a godsend, really.
Yes, it truly has. It truly has. Well, of course, those watching and listening, I will have a link so you can get Nicole's book. I'll have a link so you can connect with her via Instagram. And I'll also have a link so you can check out her website. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always great
Thank
to
you
see you.
so much. Thank you, Janet. Thanks for having me.